think
give me just a second.
Wait. I think you're kind of in the death clinch right here. So let's just keep going because you're saying.
Go on. Yeah. I'm happy to continue.
Yeah, because you're saying that it's okay to commit murder based on preference. That's what I'm hearing from you. But you reject someone appealing.
No, not my preferences. No.
Okay, I thought you were saying okay to murder animals based on preference.
It's okay to murder animals based on my preference.
Okay, so you're just playing a word game. Okay, to murder my animals based preference. Yeah, your preference
that's not a word
subjective human
preference.
That's not a
word game because there's a distinction.
It's a word game.
No.
It's a complete word game.
No, it's not.
You're trying to say that
you're trying to say that not yours or anybody else's.
Yes, Michael, we understand. You're saying my preferences and I reject everyone else's preferences. But the thing is, all those other people can just say I appeal to my preferences. So
sure they can for justification for themselves. Yeah.
Oh man. So no. The thing is, you are
using
preference as your argument, and you're rejecting preference when someone else uses it in a context you don't want. So if I say
you're still missing the distinction. I don't know that I don't know that I can be any more illustrative in the distinction.
That's probably then a limit on your part because it's pretty clear.
No, because you're conflating. You're conflating the two things. Are my preferences? And now, hang on, just say, are my preferences your preferences?
No, your preferences aren't my preferences, but both are preferences.
Then you're conflating.
Michael, they are both preferences. When you say preference justifies murder, and you reject someone else saying preference justifies murder, that is a contradiction. That is as blatant as a contradiction gets.
We can just assign any sort of transitive property, right? Like beer is water.
Now I don't even know what
is the case.
Now I don't even know.
Right. So here's the distinct. Right. So I'm making a distinction between the preferences that I hold and the preferences that you hold,
which are both.
Those are two different things,
and they're both preferences.
They're both preferences. Yes. And then here,
but there's
water is a liquid.
There's the fail right there. They are both preferences. So you reject the appeal to preference, you accept the appeal to preference, and you try to get around it by saying, "I'm only appealing to my preferences."
No. No. Hang on, just a second. I agree, and I grant you that they're both preferences.
Yes.
They're different in the sense that water is not pure liquids.
That analogy seems entirely irrelevant. There's
a distinction, right? There's a distinction. You hold those preferences based on your agency.
Yes.
And I hold my preferences based on my agency.
Correct.
And if they're subjective, then by definition, they are different.
Okay, Michael, if I say, I just want to rape Michael's mom based on preference, do you accept that?
What do you mean accept that?
Would you accept that reasoning? Do you think that is
no? Because you're just asking me based on your preferences. Do you think I ought to do this?
Yeah. So when you are simultaneously accepting and rejecting the appeal to preference, you're creating an internal contradiction in your own world.
No, absolutely not.
Preference. You're creating an internal contradiction in your own world.
No, absolutely not.
Preference. You're creating an internal contradiction in your own world.
Guys. I'm sorry. I got to take a bathroom break. Give me a second.
Boy prefers to eat Jewish babies. He thinks it's ethical. Like that's his preferences. That's basically his whole argument. It's retarded.
Well, I mean, he's trying to basically make a separate. Like, I mean, I don't know why he dipped. Maybe it was a little tricky there. But basically, when he's saying preference is the justification for killing, I'm just appealing to my preferences. Someone else can say the same thing. If he doesn't accept that, then you can't just appeal to preference. That's really all there is to it. It's as basic as it gets. It's a contradiction.
If I think the law of non-contradiction is that the same time, at the same sense, in the same way, but when he's making a distinction between his preference, a contradiction straightforward would be, I prefer X and I prefer not X. That's a contradiction. Right? Because we're saying in the same time, same way.
Wait. But when you say, I accept the appeal to preference and I don't accept the appeal to preference, that is a contradiction.
No, listen. The point is that it's a relativistic notion, right? It's relative to Michael. X is justified. Relative to some other person, X doesn't have to be justified.
Yeah, but you're missing the fact that the arguments are still following the same basic form, which is preference, though.
Preference justifies murder, and preference doesn't justify murder. Is that what I'm getting?
Well, what they're trying to do is they're trying to draw some kind of categorical separation between their preferences and other people's preferences, but they don't seem to acknowledge the fact that it's still just an appeal to preference.
Well, I don't see how anything,
I
don't see how any moral notions could be anything other than appeal to your preferences.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're obviously, on some level, all moral arguments are, but we accept, like, you expect more than just a flat-out appeal to preference. You expect some kind of justification to talk to someone. So for you to hold a different standard for yourself, it produces a contradiction.
Well, I don't understand what you just said. You just said that you're guilty of the same contradictory behavior that Michael is, because ultimately your morals...
Well, no, because I don't try to justify anything based purely on it's my preference. I mean, they are my preferences, but that isn't actually the argument in itself.
So what are the arguments then?
Well, wait, now you're trying to take it off into a whole other direction. Wait, Michael says he's back here, so let's talk to Michael now. Let's continue here, because... Michael says he's back here, so let's talk to Michael now. Let's continue here, because... preference as a justification for murder. That is a contradiction.
No, because those two people are not both appealing to my preferences.
But they're both appealing to preferences.
Right. So they're both preferences.
Okay.
But I'm only appealing to my own.
And you're trying to make the separation based on, oh, it's my preference. Okay, so someone else says, oh, it's my preference.
I don't know that, I mean, if you can't see this distinction, I don't know that you're going to get any more
I see the distinction the same way as I see a distinction between me appealing to taste and you appealing to taste. It's still an appeal to taste. You can't reject it.
Well, no, it's appealing to your preference for taste.
Yeah, but I mean, the broad form of the argument is just appeal to taste.
So are you arguing for some objective standard?
No, I'm just pointing out that it's objectively contradictory to simultaneously accept and reject the same argument.
It's absolutely not, because we're appealing to two different things.
Okay, so I mean, it's just going in circles. I mean,
that's why when I came back and jumped in, I said, I don't know that you're going to get anything more out of me if you can't understand that distinction.
Well, I mean, you can imply that it's not me understanding, but I think it's pretty fucking obvious to anyone listening, to be fair.
But like we could say this again. I drew the analogy, right? Beer and water are both liquids, right? But beer and water are different, right? This is an issue of category.
Yeah, we understand.
You're making a categorical error.
My preferences are different things, but they're both preferences.
Look, don't understand. He's not saying that the whole set of preferences justifies his actions, right? He's not saying that.
No, he's saying his preferences justify whatever he wants to do. And so he rejects someone else saying, my preferences justify me killing you.
Listen, so one subset of X, that is X star, justifies Y. Oh, right, okay? So one subset of X, X star, justifies Y.
You're still trying to play the same game.
I'm saying that he's not appealing to the whole set. He's not saying everybody's preferences, right?
No. We understand, but the problem, the area where it creates the contradiction, is when he says that it's okay to just appeal to preferences, to your personal preferences, and he rejects someone just appealing to their personal preferences, he's simultaneously accepting and rejecting the appeal to preference.
No, he's appealing to his preferences. He's not appealing to anybody else.
I'm starting to think working here. I mean, if you can't understand, I mean, now I'm saying if you can't understand this, but I mean, really, it's pretty basic. It's like when you say my personal preferences justify doing something and you reject someone else saying my personal preferences, you are simultaneously accepting and rejecting preference, though.
Well, so hang on.
Without going off on any kind of tangent, just a yes or no. Do you accept me killing you based on my preferences?
No, I don't accept you killing me.
Okay, well, I was asking Michael. You can answer also, I guess. Yeah, so if you don't accept me killing you based on my preferences, you are rejecting the appeal to preference.
I'm rejecting your preferences in lieu of my preferences.
We're dealing with retards. I think that it is boot time. Bye-bye, guys. Michael.
I don't know. I felt like 2 hours ago.
Does anyone else want to have an actual argument instead of trying to make some kind of false distinction between my preference and their preference and not just acknowledge the fact that they're both appealing to preference?
Isaac, I prefer to eat Jewish babies. I mean, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, me too.
Well, I mean, you that's fucking your preference, I guess.
But the Jew clause is not good for digestion.
So anyway, do any of the other Carnists here like actually have an argument instead of just pretending that they're not appealing to preference when they appeal to preference? like honestly, I'm truly curious. There's a few.
It seems like Zuli does. She's or he or whatever.
Zuli just thinks vegans can't get protein.
Protein. Well, I mean, like I'm not a fucking nutritionist, but I mean it's pretty obvious
easy.
there's protein in plants.
You could fry the Jewish baby and put seasoning on it.
So does like I'm actually serious, guys. Like it's an open space. I'm happy to talk. It reaches a point where it's just
I'm afraid of getting booted now, frankly.
Getting booted. Well, I mean, it just depends what you're gonna say. I mean, if you're just gonna persist in retardation, you might get booted. But when you like, I mean, what do you want, Tom?
Yeah.
Hang on a sec. I gotta finish something. I'll be with you in a second.
Sure. Yeah. Take your time.
Yeah. Speak your piece, Tom.
Zuli, here's your chance. Talk to us. I don't know what the fuck you want, dude.
I can't believe he didn't see that was a contradiction.
Huh?
I can't believe he didn't see that was a contradiction.
Well, I mean, it's just a kind of like dishonest move. He's just trying to be like, my preferences are different than your preferences. Well, they're still preferences.
Yeah, you ask, hey, would you want me to kill you? And he said no. And then I don't get how you didn't get something out of that.
Shit, my passage.
Killed.
He was so like he.
Oh shit! Fucking.
Oh jeez. Okay, who is responsible for bringing these morally retarded people to this server?
Token accidentally opened Pandora's box. We all forgive him though. We forgive him. He didn't know Pandora. Sorry.
Token, you fucked up.
These guys are I've known these guys for a while. I've been on the Krillism server for almost a year, or maybe less than that. I know that these guys are smart, but when it comes to morality, they're fucking sophists. Well, and they can't seem to attach any sort of coherent epistemology to it.
Like a few of you weren't dealing with them well before because you were trying to. It sounded like you were making like objectivist kind of arguments. Like,
yeah,
I mean, when you're talking to like especially the kind of people who think morality is just relative and stuff, which I mean it is in a sense. Like it doesn't follow from the universe. Like you have to
exactly. Yeah.
And even someone like, I mean, we have Theo in here who's a complete moron, but like even someone like Philosophical Vegan understands that, you know, he's putting a fucking correction on his post now that he understands my view. Like even he understands that morality doesn't actually follow objectively from the nature of the universe. When he's trying to say morality is objective, like he's a thing objective truth to how humans reach morality. He's not saying that it is an inherent property of the universe. So
yeah, of course.
And we had agreement on that for quite a while. So like, I mean, you have to really, when you're doing this stuff, point out that it follows. Veganism is going to follow from, like, animal rights will follow from their bootstrapping of human rights. You can't fall into the red herring of trying to bootstrap animal rights and when they've already got human rights on the table. Because if they have human rights on the table, it's just about what follows logically. You can always just randomly reject bootstrapping. But the question is, will your bootstrapping rejection actually also reject your own bootstrapping?
But Isaac, he actually denied human rights, though. He actually denied the bootstrap. He said it's totally fine if he preferred to eat Jewish babies.
Sorry, I do actually have to ask Theo, who's in here right now, because I've seen him take screenshots from here and post on the Philosophical Vegan forum, which, you know, this is like a private space. This is people talking. Is Theo recording this conversation? And I'm going to give him a minute or two to answer that. We'll just see what he says. He's typing. No. Okay. All good. Well, you're welcome to be in here as much as I think you're kind of stupid, but you're welcome to stay. Yeah. So, I mean, the whole thing here is you can't appeal to the very thing that you're rejecting and call your position internally consistent. So if you're going to just say, you know, my preferences justify murdering you, and you reject someone else saying my preferences just justify murdering you, then you are accepting and rejecting the appeal to personal preference.
But even if you do follow him with his my preference, though, if you ask him, it's like, well, what if you preferred to eat Jewish babies? Would that be moral? And he will flat out say yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, if he bites the bullet on that, then he could be consistent. If he's going to say, you know, preference just justifies whatever, then it would be a consistent position. Yeah.
Yeah, but if his if morality just means his preference, then it's not absurd for him to say, if he prefers to eat Jewish babies, he prefers to eat Jewish babies.
No, there's actually not an absurdity there. The absurdity is when
but all your henchmen were just agreeing that was absurd, right?
Pardon me?
All the other people were just agreeing and laughing and cackling about how absurd that was.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Was that before I came in here?
Just now.
Yeah, it was.
Because the thing is, in a practical sense of like the real world, most of us don't want to eat Jewish babies, so it's absurd in that sense, obviously. But in the like technical philosophical sense, I mean, it can be consistent if you're willing to actually accept the appeal to preferences in other contexts. So what's Theo saying? I'm an existentialist, speculative realist. I just think that the most joy comes from bootstrapping most responsibility. What was the shot directed towards me? Mostly just the kind of like you are non-zero sum, correct? Because it's mostly just the shit I see you say about me on that forum. Yeah, so that, I mean, anyone who wants to know why I don't like Theo, just go read the shit he says about me. So yeah, I mean, basically you can be philosophically consistent. I mean, if you're willing to actually accept the appeal to preference, then, I mean, then you can appeal to preference. That's fine. But if you're going to reject it, then you can't also deploy it. It's the same way. And saying it's my preference and I'm only appealing to my preference, I mean, that doesn't actually get you around it. It's still just preference.
But I don't know why he actually would refuse to not follow you with just saying that he's appealing to preference, because in the end he still ends up biting the bullet anyways and saying, well, yeah, if I did prefer to eat Jewish babies, that would be moral, because he bites that bullet.
What he means by moral
second, he was saying, so you mentioning me was just, we have idiots in here. Outstanding. Don't sass me, man. Like I've put up with you so far, but like I will boot you if you're just going to be sassy. I mean, I see you stupid shit at me on that forum, so I mean, what can I say? You're in my good books. I mean, there's people in this forum who aren't on my good books. I let pretty much everyone in here if they're going to be respectful in general. And if you're going to tell me I'm being disrespectful, well, I mean, it's obviously because of the shit you've written about me. And anyone who wants to see the shit he's written about me, just go read it. So, I mean, I'm not sure. Like, do any of the other carnists have anything to say? Do any of the vegans have anything to say? Tomer, you seem like you were talking a little bit.
No, I'm almost done.
You're almost. Oh, you're just like eating or something?
Playing a game.
Oh, okay.
Playing a game of Overwatch.
I was confused. Like, what did you mean when you said like we were making objectivist claims? Because I don't remember making any objectivist claim.
Maybe it was just me mostly. And I wasn't making an objectivist claim in the type that Ask Yourself is speaking of. I was trying to get them to just adopt axioms.
Yeah, I wasn't actually paying attention to, like, I can't tell who's talking. I don't know your voices well enough, and I was just listening on my iPod for a long time there while I was on the bus. So yeah, I'm not sure who was talking, but at one point people were trying to say that it sounded like they were trying to say that there's some like inherent way that rights exist and that it's like there's no way to deny animal rights. Well, it's like, I mean, there is. You can also deny human rights. I mean, you don't have to accept rights. I mean, my whole position is that there's no actual logically coherent way to reject the animal rights bootstrapping and accept the human rights bootstrapping. It's not that bootstrapping itself is somehow necessary. And it sounded like that was the direction some people were going in.
I don't know if I accidentally went in that direction, but I wouldn't intentionally say something like that.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, who do we? This fuck is recording. Who the fuck is that? This fuck is recording us. That's Darren. What is this?
Ditto is the person that's recording, apparently.
Oh, is that? Are they in?
Okay, Matt Ditto, it looks like he's live recording this.
I can't see that person in here. Where are they?
Matt Ditto.
See, now it sucks because I don't want to have to fucking boot all these people because some of them I'm sure are fine.